BP has come nowhere close to paying the actual cost of the damage done, and they're not going to come anywhere close to paying the cost.
You're not impressed with this $1 billion?
No, I'm not impressed with it. The main effect that is going to be to make some of the recipients of $1 billion more friendly to BP when the question comes about whether they need to come up with $20 billion to pay the major claims. And they're going to have some advocates now that they have bought with the $1 billion. And it's going to help them in law and public relations to hand out in pieces this $1 billion first. Yeah, they're buying friends. And it's an investment in public relations, so they won't have to come across with the big bucks later. It's like the power company buying ads in these little local weekly rural papers when they have no competition that they need to advertise against, but it makes the local paper dependent upon that ad revenue. It's insidious. And I mean, you can't expect people who are out of work and they can't go fishing, they don't have a job, they can't keep up their house payments and their road payments to say no. If BP comes around waving $1 billion at them, but it forces them to be grateful for what they got and to take BP's side in subsequent arguments about how much else BP owes.
Right.
That's exactly what I would do if I was in charge of BP and making long-range strategic decisions about how to spend some money now in order to spend less later. Oh, yeah.
Life is returning to normal. Some businesses, the Floribama is expanding. I mean, my God, people will go on. The tourist economy will somehow go on. It ain't good. The environment's completely fucked because they shrunk it all. And the amount of death that's out there will never be calculated or paid.
No, because it wasn't known to start with. That was one thing I discovered from earlier disputes about whether to put these offshore liquefied natural gas terminals out in the Gulf and the damage that they by design would do to the marine life and the water surrounding them. And in trying to assess scientifically what the trade-offs were, the benefit gained and the damage done, we discovered that the scientists themselves did not know what creatures lived there and what their life cycles were and how the water was terra incognita to them. And my conclusion was because of weird terrestrial creatures and we just can't cope with or comprehend the water life like we think we do the life on land. So they don't know what's killed and never will know. And it's out of mind and so there's no concern. You're a scientist, you know.
I partially agree with you, David. There's a lot we don't know about the deep sea, but on the other hand, there's a lot we do know. And I mean, we know what would have been killed by those liquefied gas operations. And we know a lot of what was killed by the BP oil spill. A lot more was killed than actually BP was given credit for. That disaster was a lot worse than people want to admit. And it's not over. I mean, there's things that are still dying because of the oil spill.
Right. And will be for years.
Well, right. You'll get there before us.
So I think that the biggest problem we now have is the ongoing let's get things back to normal attitude that people have.
I mean, this event was trying to teach us a lesson about what not to do. And I don't know how many chances you get to learn that lesson and do it right, but the lesson is being learned wrong by almost everybody whose opinion counts around here.
Okay.
And the lesson they're learning is, well, we can be more careful and deliberate and allow the regulators a little more latitude and do it right so it's safe and okay. And that's what they're proceeding to do. At the same time, as I said, they get this forensic report on the blow-up letter that says the thing has a design flaw that'll stop it from working properly. But they're putting it back in service and saying, we're looking closer and everything is safe. The newspaper says that editorially. Everybody whose opinion counts says that. Virtually nobody is saying the lesson we have to learn is to stop this. We are poisoning ourselves and our environment and running reckless risks with it. Do damage you can't recover from, either in huge catastrophic mistakes or drip by drip spoil it for yourselves or your successors. That's the lesson you ought to learn. It's not being learned. And there are examples around of how you could do it. The Germans, at a more northerly latitude than this, are getting a huge percentage of their national power grid now from the sun in Germany. If they could do that, we can do that. And you look at the water out there, I mean, it's flexing and bristling all the time with energy. If you could figure out how to harness that, you can run your whole society on the energy in the water and the wind and the sun. That lesson is not being learned. Instead of trying to find safer and more public relations soothing ways to resume the old ways. And at the same time, you got these students from the university who have the longer range of stake in this, going to D.C. as they did last week for that power shift, including about half of them from here, saying this has to stop. And we have to learn a different way to power our society. I mean, it's always going to be difficult because it's so easy to say this is an attack on employment and jobs. Right. So you have to simultaneously wind down the old economy and simultaneously crank up the new one, and show by concrete action that you can provide a decent livelihood by developing, manufacturing, distributing, and maintaining alternate energy sources. Meanwhile, I mean, you got to say to the jobs argument that the laboratory experiment has been conducted here. And yes, I mean, you lost some jobs when the offshore oil production was shut down, but more jobs by far were lost in the tourist business that died and the fishing business that died.